state that does this early, so there's not a lot of adjustments. However, John, it's a great point, and what Lisa produces for them is exactly that data on a regular basis, so they can see. For instance, I had a transfer request of $7, you know, so they do all that. But they also look at their previous year's actuals in order to estimate their FY17. So, but you're correct. I just wish it was later in the year.
Well, yeah, or you could just in March update it. You could do it now in detail, and then say in March, here's my changes, and that way they would get updated, because I know the state works that way. They do their budget now, but they also update it, you know.
So that's kind of
April,
exactly,
May.
you're spot on. That's exactly what we ended up doing for the committee last
The end of the year,
April,
have
May.
to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's double the work. It's kind of
It is,
like,
I know
you
it
know,
is.
wish the, somebody would look at the timeline.
Okay, next up, we have Mike, review the line items for possible adjustment.
Well, I was hoping that we'd have a reconciled budget, because it said in the minutes from last, it said in the, I believe it was the October 20th minutes, it said that we'd be getting reconciled accounts. And I would like to see the budget by line item showing what has been year-to-date expended, what's been encumbered, and where we are on track for the budget. I think it's important that we know where we stand financially. I don't want to be surprised in the 11th hour. I'd like to know beforehand where we're heading. If we had a reconciled budget right now, I mean, later on in the agenda, we're going to be talking about spending some of the accumulated carry-forward surplus funds, and we might actually be in a position to fund some of the items that are being requested in this year's operating budget. If we knew, you know, were there savings that were met, and are some costs coming in under budget? And if some costs are coming in over budget, I want to know about it now. I mean, the transportation line items, I saw some in there that looked funny. You know, the private school transportation looks to be an issue to me, and well, there were a bunch of them in there actually that looked to be questionable. So I'd like someone to just kind of take a look at it and give us a profile.
So just, I think Mike's got a few good points, if I may, through the chair.
Sure.
I think without your chief financial officer here tonight, it's difficult to respond to some of these. I believe Lisa and Alicia have a very good grip on it. I think what Mike's requesting, I would like Lisa to have some input on, because I think what he's requesting is in 2,200 line items instead of the major categories, if I understand it correctly. You approve a budget that's major categories, and then typically, like, I'll take John Lahar as an example. He has a bottom line that he has to work with him. John proposed an approved budget almost a year in advance. He has recommended certain expenditures out of certain line items in his budget. I'm gonna guess in your budget, you probably have maybe 100 or 80. 60, thank you. And out of those 60, there are times when John will send up a transfer because what he proposed almost a year ago was $7 short or $15 more. And so, to me, he has that responsibility in order to manage his bottom line, and if he needs to transfer within a line item, he puts that request through in great detail, which he finds exasperating at times, but we hold him to that detail. And it's signed by Lisa, and then it's signed by me. So I'd rather that Lisa be here to have this discussion on it's November. To make line item adjustments this early, it's a little scary. But Mike's correct on a couple of the major ones. That's to me what we should be looking at.
I had asked to have a meeting with Ms. Marcotte and Mr. Raymond and Mrs. NATO as the budget subcommittee people to discuss the school committee, the budget committee reports that we receive monthly. And I think Lisa sent us some Excel files with data on it. And just by sorting those files that she provided us, you can draw a very quick picture of where you stand on each line item in the budget as of that moment in time. And it does give you a good indication and raises a red flag that some items are way under budget and some are way over budget. So I'm not suggesting it's a terrible report to have to put together, because she provided us the raw data, and by sorting it, by object code or by department, you were able to, come up with a good picture
But
of
I
where
wanna-
there's problems, so.
I'd like to look at it and say, again, this is something I want to discuss later on. Again, I'm still worried, a lot of these reports, we can say, this isn't much of that, this isn't much. But when I look at the whole picture, it adds up to quite a lot. And I think we need a process for just how to ask people in our department for material when we're, again, last week, I got to point out, the Thursday and Friday, Ms. Markine was going away on vacation, and what was going on? We had to get the PBI, the stage 2 material had to get gotten in, and also we had the biggest agenda we've had in my 3 years on the calendar too. So there was a lot of work being put to put this together. So again, I don't want to belabor the point, and we can get to the other things later. It's just that I think we're good.
Next.
Okay, did you want to add?
No, I was just hoping, considering what you're trying to deal with in terms of different machinations of our software and different reports, I think the meeting that Mike asked for, and I don't know when he asked for it, makes sense. I think a meeting with Mrs. Marcotte, Alicia, myself, Sherry also, because Sherry's affected by a number of reports, and Mike and whoever else that you'd like to bring makes a lot of sense. And then maybe we can iron out some of these things rather quickly. Just a thought.
Very good. Next up, we're on D, fund balance items. Ms. Nato.
Yes, I know that as soon as we have reconciled budget figures, we're going to address some of the requests for spending the fund balance. And I know that in March of 2014, Mr. Scungio asked the Department of Education to rule on spending of the fund balance. My question is, the question that was answered at the time said, may a district expend a portion of all of their unrestricted carry-forward surplus funds to eliminate its projected deficit without specific permission from its municipality? So my concern is, the question addressed a deficit situation, which we're obviously not facing. So I wonder if we could ask for a ruling about just spending the fund balance at any time, since this specific question was just with regard to a deficit situation, so that we have crystal clarity when the time comes, particularly in light of the fact that the town council has asked us not to do it without running it by them. So I just wanted to make sure all our ducks are in a row when the time comes to vote on spending monies from the fund balance.
I'd be happy to do whatever the committee requests. However, the individual that would issue that opinion now has 2 jobs. Mr. Rabbit has been, as not only executive, assistant commissioner, he also has been given the position of general counsel, which he held a while ago. I think that means that we're not going to get any quick written decisions from him. I asked for a legal opinion at the request of the committee regarding the purchase of Chromebooks and whether or not that would have an impact on maintenance of Epic 4 months ago now. And I've also made a couple of follow-up requests, which I haven't got a response. I think he's incredibly busy. So my guess is you're probably not going to get a written response for 4 to 6 months. So if the response isn't going to be timely, the committee asked me to, I'm happy to make that request on his behalf.
Can I ask you a question? Does anybody want to comment on that first?
Well, it obviously needs a motion if it's something we want to entertain.
Sure. Do you want to?
Correct.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to
In
make
the motion?
a motion that we request an advisory opinion on our capability of spending the fund balance at any time without approval from the municipality.
Is there a second? Is there a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, second discussion. Buddy, do you want to say something?
Yeah, if I may. Obviously, the town council already approved the transfer of the funds. So they're now in the custody of the school department. So that approval, in my opinion, has already been done. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't get an opinion, but that approval has already been done, in my opinion.
What do you mean by the transfer of funds?
So,
When they transfer funds, they approve
the
that.
budget, right, the budget
Move
was
over to the school
approved
department.
for the town to move the money over to the school department. Okay? That has already been done, so it's already been approved. So the surplus, in my opinion, would be a allowed to be spent by the school department with, obviously, committee approval, without town council approval, because they've already approved it, in my opinion. Now, obviously, if it's a capital item, we still have to go out to bid, and they would approve that part of it. But the general sense is, I don't think that it would be.
Well, I don't know, as funds were moved over from the town with the intent that it was going to end up with a fund balance. So
But-
my motion still stands. I would like to get an official advisory
No, I
opinion just
agree
to
with
make
you.
sure that.
I agree with you. I just want to point out, again, and I mentioned this last time, I'm giving you the citations, I'll give you the cases. Again, J. Colin Dawson versus Clark, 93 RI 457, 176 Atlantic 2nd, 732. Once the money is appropriated, it's the school committee's money. The town council cannot say how it's distributed. That's law, it's still good law. Mike, put your hand down. I'm talking. It's Ruth, put your hand up. I'm talking.
Well, I think your behavior towards Mike is pretty rude tonight.
Well, I'm sorry. Coventry School Committee versus Richock, 122 RI 707, 411 Atlantic 2nd, 912, 1980. That still stands to the proposition. Once it's appropriated, it's the school committee. I will still support your motion, but I think that the law says it's not only the school committee's money, that they can basically spend it as they do fit. Now, the question is, do we want to work with the town council? That's a separate issue, in terms of negotiating with them and seeing if we can work together. But I want it to be a two-way street. I don't want it to be just them telling us what to do and us just giving money back. I don't know if even that's legal when in a year that we've been giving a level funding. And that's not a shot at the budget committee. I'm just saying, if it is level funded, I don't know if we can give money back in that situation. Again, I want to emphasize, that's not a shot at the budget committee. I'm just saying, legally, I didn't know that.
You can't get money back.
Yeah.
It has to stay in the school committee. That's right, it's law.
That's what I believe it is.
That's in law.
Mr. Chair, you're in discussion, when it's okay? I mean, Mr. Clifford had his hand up first.
Sure. And Mike, if I didn't mean to jump in again, I apologize.
Ben, my question is,
Disagree with you.
I'm not. Thank you. I'm not disputing the fact that once we get the money, the school department owns the money. What my issue is with
It's
this
outside
whole,
the appropriation.
with this whole thing is,
There you go.
if you spend it in the following year, you're exceeding the appropriation that was given you by the town. That's outlined in state law a million times. You're violating about 8 sections of the charter potentially, because the charter has a process outlined for budgeting, for capital, for everything under the sun, deadlines, expenditures needing to be reviewed by the different boards and approved by the town council. So I guess my issue more is with the fact that if you do this and you spend your surplus funds, you're violating all the things that I just cited. So I'm not disputing the fact that you own the money. Once you get it at the end of the year with the surplus, it's your money.
So
I am disputing the fact that I don't understand how you could spend the money in the preceding year without violating a bunch of sections of the charter and state law. So that's my issue. So if you file an opinion and request an opinion from the commissioner, I hope it also addresses the fact that how do we do this without violating the charter and without violating the state law dealing with the, and not exceeding the appropriation for the year?
So I'm happy to do whatever question you guys bring. If you have a specific question, I'm happy to do that. However, there is a statute that specifically provides that once a committee achieves a surplus, that surplus is educational funds. Those monies can be spent. So the legal theory, which has been expressed to me by legal counsel at RIDE and a number of other attorneys who have been involved in this for a while, is that once the money is appropriated, if you don't spend it, you can use it in the future because it's been appropriated. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be reappropriated. So that's how you get to blend all the statutes together. So as I explained last time, there's this legal concept called in pari materia. And the Supreme Court has utilized this principle many times. So what it means is you don't look at a statute to exclude or override the intent of a second statute. You find a way, or the court finds a way to read everything together because there's an assumption that the General Assembly knows all the other laws when it passes a particular statute and intends that they all work together and be blended. So when you do that and you blend all the rules together, the way that you get to spend the money is the money was previously appropriated. So it can be spent now or it can be spent in the future. We'll see what Mr. Abbott says, but if there's a specific question, if the committee wants to frame it a certain way, you can send it to me by email, and you can tell me tonight what it is, and I'm happy to include it in the letter.
Mike, why don't Ben, why don't I suggest that you take emails from people and then just construct a letter that sounds good? Because we don't want to wait until we want to get out.
The motion.
Oh, I mean, once we vote, that's what we vote on.
And then you'll take additional emails from us separately?
Be
Is that
happy.
what you're saying?
Okay.
Mr.
So
Chair.
just consider, if everybody has different questions,
Right.
I'm gonna list all those questions. So when Dave looks at it, he may throw the letter away. So
He will.
just keep that in mind. So try to frame a specific question. It would be nice if we just had one or two in the correspondence, so.
Yeah.
But obviously, I'll send whatever the committee directs me to send.
Does anybody have, I'm sorry, Steve?
Thank you, Mr.
Dennis?
Chair. Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to mention, it's a bit of a conundrum, because when you stop to think about it, the school committee acted last year and actually spent from your fund balance, I think it was around $50,000 on technology, and how much on math techs?
You're right.
About $60,000 on math techs. So so in
Already
terms
said
of the,
precedent.
excuse me, in terms of the violations of the charter and all the potential illegalities that we heard tonight, the committee has a bit of a conundrum, because you did approve expending from your fund balance, and as a matter of fact, I think you had a recommendation from the budget committee, and the budget committee chair at that time, that the school committee expend money from your fund balance to pay for technology, and thank goodness you approved the funds for your math techs from your fund balance. So I guess I'm wondering what's going on.
I think we're talking about two different fund balances. I think
Oh.
you bought the textbooks with what would have been a greater surplus from last year's surplus. That wasn't what you already had accrued in a carry forward surplus account. That was last year's, this year that just ended, you pre-purchased the textbooks out of last year's operating budget for this year. That's not tapping the other. And the technology purchase was approved by the town council. We had a joint meeting with the town council, the budget committee, and the school committee, I believe, or we conveyed to the budget committee conveyed to the council that we ought to use part of the fund balance for the purchase of the technology to a specific dollar amount. So that was with the permission of the town council.
So the only thing that I would want to check on, Mike, I would rather defer to Lisa about where the funds came from, because I just feel like it's splitting hairs. It's a surplus, whether it was a projected surplus during the year or an already audited, recognized surplus, it still was money expended from the surplus. That's all I'm saying, and I think I'd like to defer to Lisa about where that came from. And I do recognize that the town council approved it, but I guess there was still a debate back then whether school committee needed that approval or not, that's all. So I guess that's what Ben will find out.
And I think with regard to Mary's request for the advisory opinion, I think that the dilemma I have here in understanding this is, you know, everybody who was at that deficit, when the school probably thought they were gonna have a deficit, and you spoke at that meeting, and you did a PowerPoint presentation that's on YouTube that we've all seen. You clearly
One
stated.
of my best presentations.
Yeah, it was. I saved it as one of my
He's the
favorites.
president. Yeah, it was nice.
But you clearly stated that the town council approval was needed for a school department to tap their fund balance. Now you file a specific request to the Commissioner of Education saying, can we spend the fund balance when we're facing a deficit? And he answers back saying, yes, under the circumstances and facts you presented, you can. And now you're kind of taking that decision that he gave and expanding it and saying, whenever you want to spend the money, you can. So you did a 360 from what you said at that town meeting when the deficit was, and I don't get why you're doing that.
Okay, excuse me, we're voting on the letter, but I want to say something. Ben Scungio is one of the most highly regarded education attorneys in the state. Mr. Lombardi, can you?
I agree.
Okay, so that's what, so, Mr. Lombardi's an attorney too, excuse me, we're talking.
I was hoping I was going to get a citation tonight, but.
Attorneys interpret laws. Mr. Lombardi, is that correct? Do we interpret the laws? Is that what, that's what we do? Is that we interpret the laws? Mr. Scungio interprets the laws. I have great faith in his ability to interpret education laws. Again, he represents nearly half the school department